Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Anime Brain Freeze. We are your truly magical hosts.
I am John.
And I'm CC. And this is a show where we review all the anime series from the previous season we did and didn't watch, start to finish. Today we're gonna get sneaky with the Spies of the D Agency, but first let's heal our battered souls by taking a look at the relaxing adventures of a certain witch-to-be.
Well, before we get too magical on today's podcast, there's a little bit of news about a show that you and I both decided to take a look at this summer season, and that's Regalia, the Three Sacred Stars.
Oh, right, something came up.
Yes, the studio Actus, who are probably well known for one of their other big shows, Girls und Panzer, stated that this, as of this recording, this past episode, episode 4, the show was basically going on a broadcast hiatus for about a month so that they could bring the show back up to their quality of standards. Apparently they thought parts of it weren't looking too good. And, I mean, with this week's episode, there were a couple of rough spots, but there didn't really seem to be anything too offensive. But it's their decision to do it, and if they want to make it look even better, that's great. That's cool. Good on them. So apparently the show's going to be picking back up on September 1st, and in the meantime, if you're living in Japan watching it in real time on TV, you get treated to reruns of a few episodes of the PA Works show Tari Tari, show that's been on my to-watch list for, that show is 2012, 4 years now.
Okay.
So someday.
Yeah,
someday.
I'm kind of bummed that that they're taking a break. But if they have this intend to deliver a high quality product, I couldn't say anything against that. That's always appreciated. So yeah, I guess I gotta just deal with the break then.
Yeah, so it's good on them. I've taken a little bit of responsibility in wanting to get their product up to the quality that they wanted. Like, didn't the same thing I believe happen with UFO Table and God Eater, where the final episodes didn't air on TV?
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know if it didn't air on TV, but they definitely took a break before they finished up the rest of the series. They aired 8 or 10 episodes, and then the last 3 at the end of the next season or something. That reminds me, I should watch the last few episodes of that show. Anyway, but yeah, that's. I hope the same doesn't happen for me with Regalia, where I could just completely forget about it. But yeah, that's how it happened, and I think it was just. I don't know if it was quality control, or they just couldn't finish the episodes in general, not even remotely, and that's why I had to take a season break. But yeah, something about the production process went awry, and that's why I had to basically take a season break to finish the show. But it's kind of cool to me anyway that the Japanese animation industry makes it possible to do something like that. I don't know if something like that would be possible in America without the show getting completely canceled.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, my only concern is the show's picking back up at September 1st, which is, as of this recording, 4 weeks from now, which makes me wonder, how much are they going to get done in 4 weeks? They're going to have to, work themselves to the bone if they want to get done what they want to get done.
Yeah, well, and I don't know if it's a passion product, which, in my opinion, it looked like they put a lot of work into that thing, already. So I don't know. I feel like they would be willing to do that anyway, and maybe we don't know how far they have progressed with the rest of the episode. Maybe it's just some, redo some key animation or put some finishing touches on that they haven't just been able to do yet. So I don't know. Maybe it's just we need those 4 more weeks, but with that we're fine. It's just that we couldn't do it without that. So I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe it will be enough. We'll see once it comes out. If there's okay, this looks much better, or this looks much worse, so they apparently needed more time. Can't say yet, but yeah, it's interesting. That doesn't happen that often, or at least I haven't noticed it aside from God.
Yeah, I mean, how many shows that stop their run and then start it back up over again a month later?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that's an interesting bit of news anyway. But that out of the way, let's get magical. So, the first show we're going to talk about today is Flying Witch.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the...
Not an unusual thing for Witch to be doing, you would think.
This is true. Get yourself, a nice little broom, go for a nice spring flight. It's one of the latest shows by J.C. Staff. Brought us, as we have said in the past, hits such as Index, Golden Time, what have you. I'm sure you've heard. There's a little studio. I'm sure some of you may have heard of them.
Yeah.
It's based on a manga.
They're working on my trash anime of the season.
Oh, that's right. They are doing that, aren't they?
Too, yeah. But they also did Utena, so I think. So there's that.
Yeah.
And lots of in between and finished animation. So huge catalog, huge pedigree. So.
I mean, a lot of these studios, any studio, you could pick it out of a hat and be like, "Oh, look at all the other small things that they've done to help out other studios as well." So that is not uncommon.
Yeah.
It's the show is based off a manga of the same name by Chihiro Ishizuka, who did both the story and the art for it. It's directed by...
The manga is still running, right?
Yeah, well, the last volume published was in March, so, I mean, I would assume it's still running.
Yeah. Okay. More to come, so maybe, I don't know, we'll get a second season, but more to that later.
Maybe, I don't know. I think this is one of those shows that time will tell, because they didn't really have, like, a big tease or anything at the end of it.
It's also one of those... It's also one of those shows.
Spoilers, I guess.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily need a second season.
Yeah, it was directed by Katsushi Sakurabi,
who has done almost nothing I have seen.
Yeah, pretty much. He's done, a lot of small, like, animation and key animation checks and stuff like that.
He was director on Yomigaru Sora or Rescue Wings, on Gun Parade March and Heaven's Memo Pad. None of these shows I've seen. I've heard of Gun Parade March, but yeah, that's like, okay.
Heaven's Memo Pad is, again, on my long list of shows I'd like to watch eventually. But he also... he directed a certain anime that a lot of Type Moon fans, I would lead you to believe doesn't exist.
Tsukihime?
It doesn't exist.
Okay. I like that. I don't know. I maybe should go back and rewatch it, but I remember when watching it, I actually kind of liked it. I'm pretty sure that was my takeaway from it, but maybe if I would rewatch it these days, I would, say that it's total shit. Who knows?
I mean, my knowledge of Tsukihime comes mostly from Melty Blood. So...
Yeah, judging from...
I am a bad Type Moon fan. I'm sorry to everyone out there, but I'm more of a Fate guy.
I think I don't know if that was the main point of criticism, but I think they changed up like the characterization for some of the characters. At least that's how... They came across totally different in Melty Blood than they did in Tsukihime when I compared that, but... I don't know.
I mean, Melty Blood is also an entirely different genre, if you will.
Yeah, I guess. Oh, he was also an episode director of Revolutionary Girl Utena, so that's another nice spot in the pedigree. There you go.
Yeah.
And a show I have on my backlog, or have had on my backlog forever, and still haven't managed to watch, but still want to do. So there you go.
I have several friends who have a very deep-seated love for Utena, and I feel like maybe someday I should take a look at it, but I have so many other shows I want to watch too, so I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Let's see. The show was written by Deko Akao, who's she's written quite a number of things, including but not limited to one of your favorites, Noragami.
Yeah. Well, wait, she did the series composition for this one. I mean, the writing was basically already done by Ishizuka. I guess.
Well, yeah, but I mean, writing more for the show format.
Yeah, screenplay.
And I'm not too familiar with it, but I've heard the name Arakawa Under the Bridge. Apparently, she worked on as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the shining gem here in this list is Blaze Blue Alter Memory, but we're going to push that aside.
Yeah.
We're just going to ignore
Just
that.
leave that out.
It has music by Yoshiaki Dewa,
who's again done nothing that I've seen.
But we can link this back again to Type Moon, because apparently they did some music for the original adaptation of Fate Stay Night and the TV reproduction.
Ah, yeah, there was that. The
Boom.
Studio Dean thing.
6 Degrees of Fate.
Right.
You know what, from now on, every show I'm just going to try and find a way to link it to Fate Stay Night. Just kidding, I probably won't remember to do that ever.
Might actually not be that difficult.
It's true.
It's a big franchise. I mean,
yes, but more to the core about Flying Witch itself. The story revolves around this girl, Makoto Kawata. She has left what is essentially, I guess you could refer to it as the coven that she's a part of, to learn more about the outside world. In particular, travels to Aomori, Japan, to be with some relatives of hers. In particular, I believe Kei was her cousin, and his sister Chinatsu.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very much a sort of low-key slice of life, just show about going through the everyday happenings for Makoto and company, and her, taking the outside world, learning about, the magic that is apparently hidden everywhere, all around, and no one really questions it because, it's magic.
Yeah,
it's there.
It's in the most mundane things.
Yeah, it's not like big battles of flashy, fireballs and lightning. No, it's just basically little prestidigitation and stuff like that. There, tricks of the eye, hiding things in plain sight. Spirits that are around to spread their benevolence. It is a very pleasant sort of show and story.
Pleasant is definitely the right word, and the magic and how it's displayed in this show fits very much with the tone in general, because this is apparently this subgenre of anime is called yashike, which is Japanese for healing. And it's like there are a bunch of these shows. They're just like about a simple rural life with simple and very sympathetic people. Nobody is an asshole in this town. The kid of the show is never annoying. There never is really any conflict. And if there is, it gets resolved very quickly and unceremoniously. So you can see how removed from reality the show is. But yeah, it's at the same time, it feels very natural. It feels very realistic. It's like, hey, okay, even if there's magic here, this is a town that could exist. Those are people that could exist. This is how people could talk. This is not like over-exaggerated anime dialogue. This is not, I don't know, buffed up dialogue for the sake of drama. This all feels like very natural. Like, all of this feels like those are real people. They're just more friendly and more nice than real people. It's very soothing. This is like
It's just small town, just friendly folk, going about their business. Kay's family does a lot of they show them to do some farming work and stuff like that. There, it's just very easy going.
You will learn a lot of stuff about farming in that show. Also cooking. Probably more so than about magic.
Yeah.
Or at least the magic you would expect to learn about in a show called Flying Witch. Like you already mentioned, there's farming, there's gardening. We learn a lot about cooking in that show. There is actual magic as you would expect it, like boom, puff, and uh, and great big spells that turn, I don't know, people into something, fireballs thrown around, stuff like that. You see maybe in other magical anime. That's magic like that is very low key, spread very thinly throughout this episode. It's there, no question. There are definitely spells in there, but it's like really, really low stuff. Maybe there's a potion here that does something, and that can be turned into something outlandish. Mostly Makoto's sister is responsible for that shit because she's a chaos bringer. But
Akane is a troublemaker.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, other than that, it's really really low key. There are some, you get a few views into the magical universe this show is set in a few episodes, and I really like those episodes. But they're few and far between. There was like this one episode where they all go to a forest cafe.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool. That it's like where they go to a cafe, are like serviced by a ghost who brings them their orders, like coffee and whatever, and food, and also meet some people, some animals who come in from the forest and sit there to eat for some reason. And then there's another episode with a flying whale that travels around the world, and all that felt kind of Ghibli-esque. And yeah, that was probably the most outlandish and magical this show gets in its runtime.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastical without being too fantastical.
Yeah.
I feel like is probably the best way to describe the magic. Like you said, the animal in the cafe and the giant flying sky whale are probably like the two biggest outliers out of everything that goes on.
Mm-hmm. Like you already mentioned, this is more slice of life. There is like this very broad underlying plot that Makoto tries to become a better witch, but it's not really like, hey, there is this goal which you get a lot in other anime where like which kind of links it to I don't know, a school-esque experience where it's like, okay, I have to learn for this exam or something, and there's at the end of the season there's like this big I don't know, test for Makoto where she has to try to become a witch and has to compete against other witches and stuff like that. Doesn't happen. Stuff like that doesn't happen. There's like really, she goes around and there's some, she encounters some new people who teach her new stuff or whatever. She just hangs around with her cousin and his sister. And I don't know, then they make something to eat, or they go out to the carnival and meet another person, or her sister comes around. It's like, hey, what shall we do today? Oh, I don't know. Let's just go out for a walk and do some shit, or maybe there's a flying whale. It feels very like, it feels very spur of the moment. Oftentimes, it's not really like there is like this big narration or a red line that like guides you through the series. So where like in the beginning, oh, I know where this is going. No, you don't know where this is going because this show isn't going anywhere. I promise you. It's like, it really isn't.
I mean, Makoto's story is mostly that she's learning for the sake of learning. Mm-hmm. And, just having a good time while doing it.
So the journey is the destination is kind of like the centerpiece philosophy of that show and of Makoto herself.
Pretty much, yeah. I find it kind of interesting that, all of the other, like pretty much everyone is aware that there's magic around them, but they just, kind of are like, okay, it's there. All right. And they know that this, maybe using the word coven gives it a negative connotation, but I'm not sure how to describe it otherwise. But, that this...
For Bible thumpers, probably, yeah.
Yes. But this other, I guess, parallel sort of existence where all of the witches are just out of reach of our own is there. But, again, they are just there to practice magic and do, not necessarily, witchy, evil things. But, they're just there to, expand their knowledge and learn what they can. It's more like they're like scholars Yeah,
because they're very
scholars who happen to have these powers.
Yeah, exactly. The show tells that there's a variety of, I don't know, fields of expertise for witches that they can like venture to and learn stuff in. So there's someone a witch that more specializes in anthropological stuff, and there is a witch that is more interested into in biology or stuff like that, and you know how you can incorporate that into the witchcraft. So yeah, many different fields for many different witches. So it's basically like, yeah, this is a kind of science, but it's magic.
Yeah,
so.
You really could think of it that way.
Yeah,
and I mean they seem to present it such that you don't have to have been, you know, born into that sort of line to be able to learn it, because, you know, they show Chinatsu taking on an interest, and she starts to learn a few different things that she can do as well. So
yeah,
there you go.
Shinatsu is a very important character in this show, and very interesting. Like she's probably the viewer's link to this world, where she's like, she doesn't know about this stuff. When Makoto just told her cousin, Makoto's cousin Kei apparently knows about this stuff, and their mom and everyone knows, but she apparently wasn't aware of that because she's very young. But she is like, once she gets over the first hurdle, like, oh, this is all new, this is very strange, I don't know how to feel about this. She gets very interested, and she immediately takes to Makoto herself. She's like, they immediately become something like sisters.
Yeah.
And she's like, this is awesome. I love this witch stuff, and I want to, you know, if I can, I want to become a witcher myself. Of course, this could all be attributed to her, you know, being a child and interested in everything, and she's very, I don't know, she has a very naive viewpoint on the whole witch thing. There's like, oh, this is all fun. Nothing of this is going to be work and stuff like that. So, but yeah, so maybe later she decides she actually doesn't want to become a witch. But right now it's super interesting, and that's why, yeah, that's a kid. You can totally see that this is how a kid would react in her age, and that's very relatable and sympathetic. So, yeah. She definitely is a cool character. I also like how I loved how the show portrayed the sister-like relationship between her and Makoto. Just in terms of animation, there's like these small affectionate gestures. Like for example, I remember that scene where Makoto is laying her arms around Shinatsu's shoulders from behind in a scene where I don't know, Shinatsu or Makoto talk to Kei. And just these small gestures of, you know, of affection are used to great effect because you don't see such simple natural interactions in anime that often. A lot of anime is very broad. It's very, I don't know, in your face and emotional. And this is like these small delicate gestures. I just felt that gave the whole thing a very, very, again, natural feel and a realistic feel. So yeah, I really like that stuff. Much effort was put into the details here for several different aspects. So yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it was sort of a lower energy show, I feel like sort of let it get itself away with, you know, not having as intensely detailed animated scenes as a lot of other shows, but, you know, parts where they could get away with having, you know, small subtle things like that. That's neat. That's really cool. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, maybe that might come from the fact that I don't watch a whole lot of shows that fall under this genre. I guess the only other close thing would be No Biori, which is also a very sort of laid back show. Mm-hmm. I mean, quite literally, the title is like laid back, sunshiny day. But yeah, it's a different sort of thing for me, anyway. And I really like just how simple it is with the characters, and it didn't need a hard driving story. It just needed, you know, this character piece. That essentially what it was.
Yeah, just having a good time with all these nice characters. Yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about the characters a bit more. Makoto is I don't know. semi-interesting main. I mean, she's just your maybe nice neighborhood girl who's a bit of an airhead, but still very capable in general. Lots of interests and a lot of energy, and with a lot of good intentions and stuff like that. So she's very sympathetic. Her cousin Kay is also like, he's a cool guy who is willing to put a lot of work into stuff. Weirdly much into gardening. I couldn't relate to that, but he likes movies too. He's often shown watching movies, which he eats up apparently. But yeah, he's also fun character. Like I said, all these people are very, very patient with each other and very, I don't know, very nonchalant when it comes to reacting to crazy stuff. It's like, oh, okay, this happened. And maybe that's a bit out there, because I feel like in real life, to some of the stuff, even if there would be, I don't know, a stronger reaction to certain things. I think the strongest reaction we get out of Kay is when the girls try to pull him into a carnival ghost ride. And he's like, nope.
Well, at first
not having this.
At first he's kind of like, hey, we could just go over here instead. And then after they pull him in, he's like, ah.
Yeah. Pull him
and I think another great one was there's a girl, Inukai, who was it? She ate some like magic treats. Yeah, some magic chocolates that Akane has, Makoto's sister Akane, and during the days she ends up taking on a very dog-like appearance. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And at first she comes across as very angry towards Akane, this was all your fault, blah, 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 blah. But as it turns out, it was of her own doing, because she got a little too sauced up. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And immediately she turns around and it's like, oh, you're right. It was kind of my fault. And it's a lot of the situations that come up just, these kind of defuse themselves like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there are a lot of anticlimaxes in that regard. So, oh shit, where you're like, okay, now shit is going down. Nope, it isn't. But it's cool. It's like, okay. It's you will never encounter a moment in the show where you're like, just pulling your hair. If those people would just talk to each other, we wouldn't have all this stupid drama, because there really is no big drama in this show. It's all very, relaxing and non-threatening.
It's very much a story all about, and for those of you Gundam fans out there, you can say there's that word again, but it's a story about understanding, I feel like.
Yeah, exactly. It's understanding nature, understanding witchcraft, understanding people, understanding life, a lot of that stuff. And it's, like I said, a lot of cool characters, and even though there is no big plot or story or anything, there are a lot of strong moments that just pull you in if you let that happen to you. I think the best way to watch this show is if you're in the mood to just relax and you're not you just I don't know, had a tough day at work or something, and you just want to lay on the couch or sink into the couch and I don't know, take your mind off the hardships of life or whatever. I think that's the best. That's where the name Iyashike is probably derived from. So let your battered soul heal, like I alluded to in the opening narration. That's what the show is for, to make you feel better, dream yourself or think yourself into that life at this point that might be easier, but in real life probably wouldn't be, because that's not how life works. But at least in this fantasy world it is. It sounds much easier with all these nice people around, and you maybe wish you could be there at this moment in time, and that maybe helps you relax a little bit. It certainly did that for me. Like, this show soothed my mind on several occasions. And I would definitely recommend it for that. If you're in the mood for something, I don't know, plot-driven or, I don't know, an action show or something, just stay away. Don't watch that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not for everyone just because it is a very slow-paced show, and it's more about the characters than it is about anything else, but it's good fun if you give it a chance.
Yeah, it's fun, it's very relaxing, it's got some nice visuals, it's got some nice, I don't know, just relatable moments between characters where like, oh, that reminds me maybe of, you know, when I talk to that person in my life or something, because like I said, a lot of that feels natural. So, yeah. Neat little show. I don't know if we'll get a second season.
I guess time will tell on that one, like I said.
I think we both would welcome it, though.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
All right. So the other show we're talking about today is a little show called Joker Game, which is about spies. But not spies today, spies in 1937, pretty much right before World War II breaks out, which is always kind of an interesting setting.
Sort of a sensitive setting.
Sort of a sensitive setting, and I blinked twice when I saw it. I was like, okay, this kind of politically charged story from one of the countries that was definitely not on the winning side, but also on the good side of that war, who, you know, has some problems with reassessing the mistakes of their country during that time and their crimes and everything. So, yeah, I was going into this with many reservations. Let's put it that way. But first, you know, before we talk about it in detail, let's get the basic story set out of the way. Yuki, lieutenant colonel of the Imperial Japanese Army, creates his own somewhat independent spy outfit called the D Agency in 1937. He recruits a bunch of agents, most of them not Japanese military personnel, to create an intelligence power that operates in a different, more effective way than other comparable outfits in the army. And one of the main differences is the code of the D Agency, which is don't kill, don't get killed, don't get captured, because then you lose the game basically, which completely goes against the standard IJA doctrine of killing and dying for your homeland is the biggest honor, for the glory of the emperor, blah 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 blah, all that shit, all that stupid dumb fucking shit.
Tell us how you really feel.
But yeah, so I don't know, just because of the code of the, you know, of the D Agency that was a setup, I was like, okay, this sounds better. This sounds like this could go somewhere positive. Because, like, this is the right attitude, I think. So he trains his selection of spies to fight a war of intelligence against what he considers both domestic and foreign enemies of Japan during that time period. And yeah, that's basically the story setup. Show is produced by Production IG. They have done a lot of stuff, famous stuff, like all the famous stuff, Ghost in the Shell, Pet Labor, the Blackjack OVAs, and the movie. But they have also done newer great stuff like Psychopaths, one of my other favorites, Kuroko's Basketball. They cooperated with Studio Wit on Attack on Titan to have them with their production values. And they did some other stuff too, like they did a lot of the anime sequences for Bandai Namco's Tales of series before Ufotable took over that gig. And yeah, lots of good stuff, lots of veterans. I have seen a lot of their shows that I dig, and they most of the time bring their A game, and their shows look really good. It's based on a novel series by Koji Yanagi, which also spawned a live-action film. I haven't seen that. I haven't read the novels, so I can only talk about the anime itself. I can't speak of its value as an actual adaptation and its competence in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, that's what kind of sparked my interest in it, because, again, I don't know much about it outside of the show, but I was like, oh, so this, you know, has a lot to work with then, so maybe it could be interesting.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how many of the novels are covered by the anime, if it was all of them. I know that one of the title of the third novel is also an episode title in the anime, so I'm not sure if they actually covered all of this, or if they just took selective stories from each novel and then put it in the show. So yeah, like I said, I haven't read the novels, and I don't know if there's enough material or just some material left at all for a second season. It definitely leaves itself open enough to get one, but I don't know if there will be one. So we'll see. Music is by Kenji Kawai, who has done a lot of shit. Again, Ghost in the Shell, Pet Labor, Ranma 1/2, more recent stuff, Gundam 00, which I like the soundtrack of that show a lot. And
he's doing Mob Psycho 100 currently.
Yeah, right now, exactly. And I think the style of Gundam, of the Gundam 00 soundtrack is most relatable to what you can expect from this soundtrack in Joker Game, because the main theme, like in the teaser before the opening animation starts, heavily reminded me of another track from Gundam 00. It's like, wait a minute, you have heard that soundtrack before. Is that from another show? And it's like, oh no, it just sounds exactly like another track from Gundam 00. Well, okay, yeah, there you go. But I like the soundtrack of Gundam 00, so I like the soundtrack of Joker Game too. It heightens the drama very much, and the melancholy of certain situations. It gets very, very in your face. It's not that subtle. Very, very dramatic orchestra stuff most of the time, especially when a situation gets tense in the anime. But it's cool stuff. It's good stuff. It sounds cool, definitely. Yeah. So this feels more like an anthology series than a straightforward conspiracy plot or something. Even though you would expect something like that from a show with that setup. But every episode we follow the mission of a different spy from the D agency. Sometimes we see a familiar face, basically of Yuki, if Yuki gets involved personally, because he's very recognizable. He has this cane. He's an older person. But other than that, it's like new episode, new person in the spotlight every week. Like, we meet all the spies in the very first episode and get acquainted with them. I say get acquainted with them, but we really just meet them, see them, and then we're off to the next episode with one of them, and then the episode after then, and it's another spy, and there we go. And but we rarely see them again, all of them on screen, and interacting that much with each other after that. And therein already lies the problem I had with the show. I don't know about you, but we'll see. You can tell me how you felt about that. I couldn't get invested in the characters because, except for maybe one of those guys and Yuki, we barely spent enough time with them or get any of the background story to make them distinguishable from each other. The art doesn't help with that. It's pretty, but the characters' facial and body features look very similar. They have pretty much not exactly the same haircut, but the show is geared towards like a more realistic style. It's trying to be like, this is a show, a period piece, and it's supposed to look like those could be real people in that time. So you don't get outlandish anime haircuts or hair colors or stuff like that, or weird, anachronistic fashion or something. It's mostly people with black or brown hair in black or brown suits or gray suits. That's what you see. And that makes it really hard to tell these characters apart. We maybe learn the name of all the different spies once, if at all, and often they even use aliases. So it's like you see a character, you hear his name once, and then it's like, okay, when this character appears again, you don't know who he is. Is that a guy we met before? Have we seen that guy? Who is he? What was his name again? Did he get a background story? No, he didn't. And I just couldn't tell them apart. The maybe worst example of that being an episode following a spy from another outfit. And until that guy kills an informant in cold blood, I was never sure if he was actually one of the spies from the D agency acting as a double agent. just because I couldn't remember their faces and their different, their different character features. It's like, okay, is that guy part of a DJ agency? Is he maybe like playing a double agent game? Is that him, or is he really is he a bad guy? I don't know. I don't remember those guys. I don't remember his face. I don't remember any of their faces. Which maybe was the point. I mean, spies shouldn't be recognizable. They should, they should just be able to blend with the crowd and disappear in certain situations, I guess, without problem. But if I can't tell the characters apart or don't know anything about them that lets me connect to them, it boils down to a spy A does this today and spy B will do this next week. I don't know how you felt about that. It's like, did you have problems telling the characters apart and, distinguishing between, I don't know, who was the spy that acted today or something like that?
Well, before I answer, let me let Comcast even the fuck out, because I was lagging so bad that you're roboting out for a while there.
Okay.
Right. So, well, to be fair, you finished the show. I didn't. I got 4 episodes in, and it was because of the reason that I couldn't tell who was who.
Yeah.
I appreciate the idea of, oh, this guy's off doing this. Okay, and now this time we're gonna, go off and look at this guy. I don't dislike the idea of a non-narrative linear, because, I mean, one of my favorite shows, Cowboy Bebop. Its story it's all over the damn place. Yeah. But you also know who it is that you're interacting with and who you're seeing. It's not just, sometimes it's faceless guy A, or other times it's faceless guy D. No. And that's what really turned me off, was they were able to get away with the designs and the coloration that they had because of when it was set. But because of that, I was just like, I can't bring myself to really care about any one of them in particular, because they keep jumping all over the place. They're not really giving anyone any of their due moments.
Yeah, so exactly the same problem I have with that. You learn nothing about the characters themselves. They're basically just spy. This is spy 1, this is spy 2, this is spy 3. The only thing that counts for the story of this episode is the mission, and if he's able to accomplish it, and what is the mystery behind the mission. But we don't care about the characters because we don't know anything about the characters. Maybe we're not supposed to know anything about the characters, because that's what spies are. They're not supposed to, or they should be anyone, right? They should be, able to blend in. They should be able to become someone they're not, and maybe that's why they're supposed to be a blank slate. Maybe that's the point. Maybe the story itself matters more than the characters, or they're just vehicles to tell certain spy stories. Okay, I can deal with that, but I can understand it. I can't deal with it because I need something to latch onto, and
in that case, I feel like, and they probably don't have the budget or to do something like this, but why not something like, I don't know, a series of like longer episodes, or hell, even OVAs, where you can spend more time with each character.
They just could have, given, I don't know, there may be like restricted by the source material, because I don't know how much you learn about these characters in the novels. If you don't learn anything about these characters in the novels, of course, they could have given them origin stories in the anime, but maybe they didn't want to, because they didn't want to stray far from the source material. I can learn that too, but still, that doesn't like erase the problem. Just because I understand why they maybe did what they did, it doesn't make it better. It doesn't erase the flaw, and the flaw is you learn nothing about these characters. They're totally interchangeable. They're not distinguishable from each other, or barely. And you don't have that's the other problem. You don't have much connective tissues between the different missions and spy stories. If it was like an overarching plot that like culminates in the last 3 episodes, you maybe could like get invested in the story instead of the characters. But since it's for most of the time a new story each episode, with a new character each episode that you can't recognize, there's almost nothing to connect to.
Yeah.
I mean, if your whole show is about dying is losing the game and individual lives matter and messages like that, maybe don't make your characters so interchangeable that they lack, set important identity and individuality. It just feels like a really weird decision. And if it wasn't their decision, it was the author's decision. So, but then again, I assume you at least in the novels, you at least saw the names of the protagonists on a regular basis because they were speaking and he had to mention their names to show who is speaking. So at least that is something that the novels have over the show. I don't know. This just this felt so weird at times and so unrelatable and really hard to latch onto.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Koji Yanagi's Amazon JP page, I mean, there are several novels in the series, but I imagine with that, considering a book is a book, he probably has his own time and way of being able to expunge upon the details that were clearly missing from the show.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a translated version of those novels. I kind of want to, read them and see if they give me some insight into the characters that they show apparently wasn't intended to do, or if the novels have the same problem, at least in the regard of not giving the characters any background.
I would imagine that the novels probably don't have that problem, but the movie probably does.
Yeah, I can see that. Let's talk about the story here a bit. The spy, I already mentioned it in passing, but the spy plots in the episodes themselves are pretty okay in my opinion. Some of the developments are predictable. I know you've only seen 4 episodes or something, but in my opinion, it's still staged competently. There's enough drama in the staging and in the presentation. I don't want to be completely negative about the show. And if I can highlight one really positive aspect, it is the presentation, the animation and the animation, the framing, the direction, the music, everything in the show is great, as I would have expected from Production IG. It's just that the rest.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be down on the production either. It's just the way the story was told was the problem.
Yeah. Like I said, I would have wished for it to have a more connected plot line through all of the episodes instead of anthology style. Since you can't connect to the characters because they are so interchangeable, all that left is the plot. And while some of the stories have great setup and payoff, I would have liked an all-encompassing story much more, I think. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess we're on the same page here that the biggest problem of the show is the hollowness of the characters and the lack of, I don't know, depthness. There's some nice morals and philosophy spun around in certain plots, and they give you learn a lot more interesting stuff about the side characters that appear in this episode than about the actual spies. The spies are only there to tell you stories about the characters that are their mission. Someone gets killed or someone turns out to be the killer, and you always learn interesting stuff about those characters, but you never learn anything interesting about the spies themselves. Except for maybe one example, later in one of the later episodes where one of the spies I think dies, and you learn a bit about him and his past, I think, but only after he's dead. Yay!
I mean, I wonder if that is, again, a narrative choice, like you said, because, they're supposed to be spies. We're not supposed to know anything about them while they are on their operations. And that could be the case, but even if that is the case, it's still kind of...
Yeah, it's kind of weird. You might just as well have used, one spy character that is, interesting, and that... I guess the basic problem is I was never necessarily rooting for the spies because they were interesting characters to me. I was rooting for them because, okay, those are the good guys, I guess, maybe. So I'm supposed to root for their mission to be a success, but I'm not rooting for that because the characters are sympathetic to me or interesting, because I don't know anything about the characters. And okay, if that's your intention, that's fine, but don't expect me to like it or, latch onto your story, because that's hard in that moment. And the only thing I really connected to were some of the stories of the people they encounter during their missions, because you actually learn about those people, and you learn why they strayed from their path, or what's the motivation behind the crimes they committed, or stuff like that. And that's interesting stuff that gives the characters depth, and that depth was lacking from the actual Spies. So maybe their intention was just to tell interesting stories about characters, and the actual spies in the story are the storytelling vehicle and a point of view for the viewer, and introduce us to these characters. But it just from a storytelling perspective, it just felt really weird because I connected more to the bad guys, or to the characters who are gone after one episode because the mission is over, than to the actual spies and the protagonists of the story, or who are supposed to be the protagonists.
It just falls kind of flat for what are supposed to be the main characters.
Yeah, except for Yuki, maybe, because you learn some interesting stuff about him later on in the series. You didn't get that far. That happens a bit later. And the episodes where he is like the centerpiece, or takes center stage, so to speak, are the most interesting to me, because he's like probably, with the exception of one other character, the guy in the first episode who's I think the only guy who comes in from the army. Forgot his name, of course. But he has a bit of character background too. Aside from him, Yuki is the only one that gets really any depth and gets really interesting character development in quote unquote. But yeah, he's cool. I would like to learn more about him, for example. But I don't know if we'll see anything more. So maybe I guess I have to read the novels if they're available in English, which I don't know. I was worried in the beginning, like I said, that given the time the series is set in, and Japan's general problem with acknowledging and reappraising a lot of that what happened during World War II, this series might turn into a jingoistic nightmare. But instead, I learned that it's at least very critical of the attitude in that era.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. I think that already shines through in the first few episodes, but it gets much more serious and in your face in that regard in the later ones. It's very adamant about portraying people with the die-hard, for the glory of Japan, kill or be killed stuff, in a bad light, often showing them being idiots or actual criminal scum, with no moral code, even if they pretend to have one.
Oh yeah, they kind of did touch on that in like the first couple of episodes, and I'm thinking about it with the raid. Yeah,
and they even more so do in the later episodes. That most of those people are only in it for power or blind patriotism or stuff like that, and the show condemns that. Not like, well, sometimes outright. Like you got people telling other people in the show that they are wrong and dumb, and they are basically what's killing this country and ruining its integrity and legacy and stuff like that. So yeah, I appreciate it, that it doesn't show and comment on any of the actual events considered war crimes from Japan committed during that time. They do that by setting this show in a pseudo alternate universe where like this is.
You mean like how some shows have that, if this resembles any person's living or dead, it is a purely a coincidence sort of thing?
Yeah, the show actually really says that it's set in kind of an alternate universe. So that way they're like, okay, we don't maybe have to address all that shit, because maybe in this universe it didn't happen. It's just, okay, guys, if you don't want to talk about that stuff, I get it. But, all of the rest of this is so clearly, this is World War II, this is how it went down, and we're just not going to talk about the stuff that our country is criticized for even today, or at least not all of it. Like I said, the show is very critical of the attitude during that era, which I really commend, and I really appreciated. it maybe doesn't include some of the stuff that I would have liked to see them, talk about in a critical light. But it also doesn't make light of them. Like, it doesn't, make them like out to be something harmless or whatever, or deny them or stuff like that. It just doesn't talk about certain things that I maybe would have liked to see it talk about. But yeah, maybe that would still be too politically charged in that country, and I don't know how free is the anime industry is to talk about stuff like that before it gets censored. I don't know.
Maybe again, that's something that's more in the novels.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think the novels are also described as I don't know, fantasy fiction or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, it was a better handling of this material and this setup than I expected. Is I guess what I'm saying. It's like if you are like me, deterred by just a pure setup of a spy show from Japan set during World War II with Japanese people being good guys, then, rest at least kind of assured that the show itself is very critical of the attitude of its, origin country during that specific era. What it comes down to, if you are in the mood for some simple spy mystery stories, give it a try. It's an interesting setting, which you don't see in anime that often. And despite its very dramatic staging and everything, it's very grounded in reality, and it feels, again, like Flying Witch, which we said felt very naturalistic and realistic. A lot of the stuff in Joker Game feels very realistic and grounded. Maybe some portrayals of I don't know, of the fights and the intelligence work feels a bit too dramatic or too outlandish for the time period. But still, most of the stuff feels very realistic and very interesting. Maybe like a cooler, older spy story from the 60s or something that you would have seen in the movie back then. That it feels like a low-key James Bond movie at times. And
yeah, I was gonna say, it's like, hey, did you want James Bond? Here's like 13 of them, but you can't tell them apart.
Yeah. Also, no crazy science toys or anything. It's just really basic detective work and stuff like that. That's a lot of what the show comes down to. Like, there's someone getting killed, or there's some secret document a spy has to obtain and get to from another outfit, be it a German one or Russian one or what. Or there's a counter spy agency from another country. They have to trick and work around, stuff like that.
I mean, I appreciate that it is grounded in reality in that sense.
Yeah. So if you dig stuff like that, if you dig basic spy stories, definitely give it a try. Even, if the characterization is not there, maybe you get something out of the episode plots themselves. And like I said, there's some new, neat character stories just in the antagonists and in the missions themselves, just not for the main characters or what you would assume would be the main characters. It's just like a nice portray of a fictional World War II and how spies might have operated in that time. Just, take all of that with a grain of salt, because it's still fiction and it's still coming out of Japan. And yeah, it's spy fiction. It might still keep you engaged with its great production values, which kept me going till the end. I just liked how the show looked. I just liked how it animated, how I liked the music, everything, direction. All of that is top notch. Just wish there had been more to the story and the characters, or that we could have learned a bit more about them. I think that would have made it a better show. But maybe if we'll ever see a sequel, if there is one, I doubt there will be one, but maybe then we'll get some insight into some better insight into some of the characters, or at least learn some more about Colonel Yuki, because he definitely was the most interesting one. But yeah, other than that, got nothing more to say. If you dig that stuff, maybe check out Joker Game. If you like your protagonist with a bit of depth, I guess stay away. And that is a wrap on the 12th episode of Anime Brain Freeze. All the music in our show is from the Double Dragon Neon soundtrack by the amazing Jake Kaufman. please go to vrit.bandcamp.com and check out his awesome work. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and animebrainfreeze.com. Leave us a comment anywhere you like, or send us an email to animebrainfreeze@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you had a good time, and please join us again on our next show. Adios.
See you next time.